So without further ado, I'd like to hand over the mic over to Christian. Over to you.
Thanks, Iris. Well, today was a great day so far, not just because of all the other awesome sessions, but also because after 2 months of Corona lockdown here in Austria, the hairdressers finally opened again, and I got an appointment, so I take the plunge and share my camera during this session with you guys. All right, so as the first best practice for mobile development, and this applies in general and not only Qt specific, please ask yourself this simple question. Why do you actually want to build a mobile app? That's a great blog post, by the way. If you don't know it, make sure to check it out. That question for the why is really important because there are many apps that just show simple information, but no user actually wants to download an app to just get informations. What the users really want is to get some real value out of mobile applications. And you can provide value by using the unique features of mobile phones. This is either because you always have it with you, or because you make it a lot simpler to use compared with a website, for example, by using the gestures or touch control of mobile phones, or by using the other unique mobile specifics like using sensors, Bluetooth access, camera or augmented reality on top of that, using the location sensors and modules or push notifications. And so after you got the value right, you should aim to impress and wow your users with a great user interface and user experience to really have a chance to stand out across all the other mobile applications out there. Currently, there is more than 3 million mobile apps just alone on the Google Play Store and the same amount approximately on the iOS App Store. So the goal should be to really make something better than these existing applications. And so what does a great user experience actually mean on mobile? Well, the core part is to provide a native user experience. And native means that it follows the design guidelines by the underlying platforms, iOS and Android. I'll give you a few examples, starting with the navigation. So the navigation is quite different on iOS on the left, as you can see here, and on Android on the right. Because on iOS, users are used to using a swipe back gesture, for example, to navigate between different pages, which means they're swiping from the left to the right to go back to a different to the page that we're coming before. And this makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because on Android you have this back button that you can press from the bottom, but on iOS there is no physical back button there. So if you would only have the back button, for example, on the top of the page, this would mean that users always would have to go up to the very top of the mobile phone, which is kind of tricky with especially now that smartphones getting bigger and bigger, which would mean that users actually would need to have and use both of their hands to control your mobile application. So it's really best practice to use this back swipe navigation on iOS. Otherwise, users will just find that weird and your app won't get that good of a ratings. On Android, on the opposite, you have this back button navigation, so the things are different there. Also, you usually have a navigation drawer on the left-hand side on Android, which you don't have on iOS that often, but you rather have on iOS a navigation bar on the bottom, as you can see on the left side. And in addition to the navigation, there's a lot more of the differences that might be subtle, but these make a real big difference if you sum all of them. For example, the scrolling. Scrolling through a list is different on iOS compared to Android. Why? Because the velocity and the speed and acceleration of this actual scrolling is different. And it feels different on iOS and Android. Also, the scroll bar looks different on both platforms. For example, the bounce back when you reach the end of the top or the bottom is different. And many more things, like, for example, buttons, of course, look different on iOS than on Android. And also, the font sizes and fonts themselves are different. The dialogues are looking different on iOS and Android. So you can see examples for native dialogues here in the video. Also the share dialog, and as you have seen in the last section here was the date or time pickers, for example, which are different. So Qt Quick Controls 2 give you great flexibility tune the design of single controls, but to get all of these native details right and to get an iPhone styling, they won't get you that far, and your app won't really feel like a native mobile app. So that was one of the reasons why we created the Felgo SDK, which extends Qt with more than 200 of additional APIs to make especially mobile development simpler. And although we have started almost like 10 years ago, focusing mobile first, what we have seen in the past years was that the mobile first paradigms and the best practices in terms of user experience from mobile now also spread to other platforms, especially embedded, where it's now best practice to have a smartphone-like user experience. And even if you have a look at the desktop applications, they're getting more and more positive experiences in terms of user experience also from the mobile world. If you compare this like to 10 years ago, traditional MFC apps, this was a very different story back then. So a lot of things have changed in a positive direction. And this is a very positive trend actually also in regards to the APIs that you can use, because you're not limited only to use them on their mobile phones and mobile platforms, but you can use it on embedded and desktop as well. So besides the SDK, we also offer Qt professional services, and we help teams to develop applications for all platforms, mobile, desktop, plus embedded, and do trainings as well on-site and remotely, which is more common now in these days, especially with Corona. And so what are the actual APIs that I was mentioning before? So the screenshots and videos that you have seen in the last slides, these were all taken with Felgo controls, but there is a lot more to it. So I'd like you to focus on the next slide on all of the items that are in orange. So all of the orange items are APIs that are added by Felgo on top of the Qt framework. So you can use the full range of QML APIs, plus the ones that are listed in orange there. And as you can see, there is a lot of different functionalities and features available. Not only limited to UI and controls, but also revolving around logic, and also, of course, a lot of native functionality. And which of these APIs and components are of most value for you and for your specific project is really depending on the use cases. And I'll just give you like a quick run through what the most common ones, the ones that are most often used regarding mobile platforms. So to start with is adaptive layouts, or also called responsive layout. And what this is all about is that you are using the available screen size as good as possible. So for example, on a tablet, you really want to show a different UI and you want to provide a different user experience than, for example, on a smartphone, because you have a lot of more space to show. And it wouldn't be a good idea to just scale it up, but rather a better approach is to show a different user interface to the users then. The cool thing is that with the Felgo components, they do this automatically. So as you can see here, it changes whenever the screen gets bigger, changes to a master detail view, where you can show additional content side by side. You can customize that to your liking, but the real benefit is that you don't need to do this all from scratch, but you can work on a base there and work from there. Also, as you could see, is that you can change the platform on desktop for simulation purposes, and that you can switch to desktop as well. So there's also an on desktop styling, which is quite popular nowadays to use, for example, on the left-hand side, an application sidebar, where you can easily switch between your navigation main pages, which does not exist on mobile because you don't have the mouse as an input control there. Another topic that is often overlooked but is a key part of user experience is support for notch or display cutout, as it's called on Android, which is the area on the top and the bottom with the rounded edges, where you should still have some content that you're showing, but not something critical that could be overlapped by these top and bottom areas. And this is getting more and more popular due to the most of the devices, the new ones are using this navigation concept. So with the Felgo APIs, you get available components that you can use to support this notch fully, both on iOS plus Android. And you can also control the safe area that is not overlapped and render your content in there automatically. If you're using the APIs from us, they're automatically adapting to use the full screen size, but you can also just use the sizes in QML and then place your content in there. Also, for example, if you want to know the height of the virtual keyboard, this is available as a property, just to give you an example, to make sure that, for example, if the user has the virtual keyboard open, that you shift the whole application up a bit so that the underlying input controls are not getting overlapped by the virtual keyboard. All right, so I've mentioned before that mobile apps need to provide additional value first for the user by using the mobile features like push notifications. And well, to do so, you can use our mobile plugins for that. First of all, for example, here, there is an example how to use push notifications in your Qt applications, which is really as simple as that, as you can see here. So it's like 5 lines of code. You just add the import Felgo statement on the top, and then you get the QML item OneSignal, which is a push notification provider that then works across iOS and Android cross-platform, just like that. So integration is simple, and not only push notifications are supported by actually 3 different providers, but also other plugins, like, for example, for analytics and telemetry, Firebase, Facebook, or other third-party services. So our role in this is that we are maintaining and updating these plugins that you can see here to make sure they are working together with the latest Qt versions, iOS and Android versions, the latest Android SDK and NDK versions, and to make sure that also, of course, all the third-party plugins are updated regularly. This can get quite time-consuming if you consider that there's a major update of iOS and Android every year. There's NDK versions like 1 or 2 times a year, and there's 2 major Qt version releases approximately per year. So this sums up quite quickly. So we take care of all of that and also can support you if you want to integrate that into your existing Qt application. Another plugin, which is more advanced a little bit, is to use augmented reality or machine learning in your Qt application, which is also possible out of the box with an augmented reality plugin. If you want to have a look there, I'll share the link at the end of the presentation. Another key best practice for mobile is to test often, especially on your mobile device, because in some cases you need to test on device anyway. For example, when you're using augmented reality or camera functionality, or when you're using sensors or push notifications. So how does the usual development process look like on mobile? Well, actually quite similar like on desktop, right? You write your code, you hit save, compile it, deploy it, and then test it on your mobile phone. With the key difference that this takes a lot longer on mobile than it takes on desktop. So on desktop, if you have like a fairly small application with Qt, it takes maybe like 10 seconds. Bigger applications and more changes might take a minute or 2. A minute is actually quite the minimum that you can get when you deploy your application to mobile. It can be up to 5 minutes or even 10 minutes if you have a lot of assets in there. And if you think about that you probably won't only test it on one device, but maybe on 2 different devices, for example, a smartphone plus a tablet, or for example, on Android and iOS, this gets multiplied quite easily. And more than that, you don't just test it once a day, right? But you test it a couple of times, maybe even 100 or 200 times a day. So there's a lot of time actually that you're waiting until the actual application deploys and you're losing focus from coding itself. So that's why we created a solution for that problem, which is called Felgo Code Reloading, which brings down the whole deployment and testing process to just 2 seconds. So how does that work? Felgo Code Reload is a standalone application that is added in addition to your Qt Creator environment. And you can see it here. It's integrated here directly into Qt Creator with the green arrow saying live within Qt Creator. So that's a Qt Creator plugin. Integrates nicely within Qt Creator. And if you press this, then the live server application opens, which checks whenever you make any changes to the file system. And whenever a change is detected, all the connected clients are updated simultaneously, and the code is transferred to these devices and reloaded. So in this video, you can see how we are removing the image, for example, from the IDE. And as you can see here, in all connected devices, the code is getting updated and the application refreshes. And this is not only happening on the desktop application, which is popping up in the center, but also on a connected iOS plus Android device. So this is really a huge time saver because you don't have to wait several minutes, but this is just within 2 seconds, you have the full application there. However, there's one disadvantage to this live code reloading is that the application will always start at the main entry point of the application, so basically at the main QML. So we solved that problem as well with the next generation of code reloading, which is called hot code reloading. And I'll show you this in this video here. And the way this works is you can change and modify your code. And in this example here, we have a list page with several items in it. And in this, we are opening a subpage whenever we click on one of these list items. So we click that now. As you can see here, we are editing the subpage now, and we're changing the title here. And as you can see, we are not starting from the initial entry point of the application again, but we are actually within this page that we have been just editing and navigating towards. And this really changes the way that you code with Qt actually. Because you will save a lot more often, you will do smaller iterations, you will build your UI more incrementally, and it's not just about like testing simple things and changing properties, but you can do the full range. You can add new QML files, you can modify multiple changes at once, do whatever you want, and see these updates instantly applied to all connected devices. So we also recorded a video of that in Nuremberg at the Embedded World Conference this March, actually, which was before the Corona lockdown, where you can see 3 devices connected simultaneously to the same application on desktop. On the right, you can see an iOS application, in the middle, an embedded device, and on the left, an Android tablet, all showing an automotive demo that we did for an automotive customer. And what you can see here is that the navigation arrow on the top, this changed now from the left to the right on both screens because we are changing this in code and Qt Creator, and it gets updated instantly on all 3 devices. Also, what you can see here, Alex is changing, for example, the image. He replaced that, added a new one. He changes the sizes, the margins, colors, fonts, whatever. So you're not limited to any kind of changes. You can change whatever QML code you have and get these updated across all devices simultaneously. So to summarize, Felgo Code Reload is a standalone tool that works for Qt Creator, Qt Design Studio, Qt 3D Studio, but also Visual Studio, any other text editor IDE you're using. And it works with any Qt and QML project. So you don't need to use any of the Felgo APIs in there. It works with any stock Qt application just out of the box. Also, it's working for mobile, desktop, embedded, plus web. Regarding web, I'll show you a video in a minute. And of course, the only limitation that is there is the code reloading part is only applying to QML code. So, which is also one of the main reasons why we are suggesting to use QML as much as possible in your application. Not only for the user interface, there it's very obvious why you should use QML, but also for application logic, which is not really time critical or not real-time relevant. These things are good to do in C++, but the application logic reacting to user input is mostly not real-time critical because you don't have the mass of data there. And that's very easy to do with QML as well, or doing model handling, for example. There's great components also available in the Felgo APIs that you can use, for example, the JSON list model, which do all the underlying topics in a separate thread under the hood, and you can write the actual logic then in QML and JavaScript. Code reloading also, of course, works if you have custom C++ code. And the way this works is that you just compile your own code reloading application, then integrating your custom C++ code, so the QML code knows about all the model and state details. And you can even build custom versions for any target that Qt supports, so also embedded, for example. A really cool thing about this is also that you can use this technology for over-the-air updates. So you can publish new app updates, not only for mobile, but also for desktop or embedded, and have these live apps updated with the same technology, just over the air, as long as there is an internet connection available. It also is working on embedded, by the way. All right, so, and the last best practice I'd like to share with you guys is for mobile is about the actual publishing process to the app stores. So the usual process we see with teams is that one guy is decided to be the DevOps or build engineer. And he's taking care of setting up a build PC. Of course, you need a Mac to publish for Apple in this case, or maybe you even have this integrated in a CI/CD system, like with Jenkins or GitLab CI, to do the actual building process. And then the uploading is most of the time a manual process to the app stores. And however, then the project continues, and then the issues beginning to start, because what happens if the Qt version, for example, changes? What happens if the Android or iOS SDK version changes? The Android NDK version changes? And the NDK version might not work together with the latest Qt version, etc. Or what do you do if the Xcode version changes, or Android, a requirement changes, for example, to have a multi-architecture build, like it happened last year, etc., etc. So there are coming a lot of things across in the way that are actually not really benefiting your product. This is just mundane work, but that's holding you back. And we have seen this a very time-consuming task in a lot of the applications that we have built with customers, seeing this over and over again, and also in internal projects that we have been building for mobile. So we created a solution for that problem as well, which is called Felgo Cloud Builds. And I'll show you a video about that, how this works. So basically, you hook up your Git repository with the Felgo Cloud Build server, which can both run on the web, but also on your own server. And you can connect that to any public or private Git repository. In this video here, you can see we connect the GitHub repository and decide to push the master branch, use the Qt version, specific one, and then we just hit starting the build. And what Cloud Build does is that it builds the actual application for both iOS and Android all automatically. And you can then go and distribute these binaries yourself over your own website, or you can use just by a simple tick of a checkbox, tick the deploy to App Stores button, and then it gets directly uploaded to the iOS App Store, as you can see here, plus the Google Play Store. And you can then connect it with, for example, Apple Test Flight to distribute your beta versions to Apple test users, or distribute it to Google Play Alpha or Beta testing channel, or hit it live instantly. And the really cool thing is you don't need to set up anything manually anymore. This is just, everything's automated, very easy to use. In addition, you can run this on your own server or use the hosted version. And of course, you can also integrate your available custom build steps if you have any. And you can integrate available testing services in there. So we are, for example, in many cases are using Squish for UI testing, also on mobile, where you can do screenshot comparisons and check if the application is still building and is looking like in your previous versions. And you can hook your Squish UI tests or Qt unit tests or Qt UI tests and hook them together with the Cloud Build setup. And in addition to iOS and Android, you can also use Cloud Builds to actually build for desktop platforms, Mac, Windows, and Linux, and also for embedded hardware. And the very latest addition to also use it to build it for the web. Because one more option to do like a very easy publishing besides the Cloud Build or over-the-air updates is by using WebAssembly actually to distribute mobile applications to your testers. And the way this works is that WebAssembly is now with the recent release of Felgo fully integrated into the whole SDK. And the way this works is, as you can see here, the code reloading is also integrated with WebAssembly. What you can see there is that the application is starting in the browser, and you can modify and tweak it in your Qt Create or any other IDE, and you see the application update in your browser at real time, which is really cool. Not only for development, but you can also then publish this mobile application and share it with your mobile testers so they can run it on their mobile phones. Or they can run it in the browser for testing on desktop. You can do the same here and test some of our projects that we built and some of the demos and the link that I've shared below. Check it out on your own desktop browser. It also works on mobile. It's pretty cool. The first time you see like real Qt applications powered by Qt and Felgo in the browser. This is a really cool wow moment. So the only limitation that you have with WebAssembly is currently that you don't have not that full range of native accessibility, so like native plugins, sensors, etc. But in terms of the look and feel and the UI, these can be like tested very well because you have the full touch and gesture control, for example. All right, so to recap the session, what are the best practices on mobile? First, of course, to provide real value to your users, make sure that you get the value proposition right. Then delight your users with great user experience and native user interface to have a native user experience for your users on mobile. Then, of course, to test the application often during development to get the whole experience and the user interaction right. And to release frequent app updates, because this is also something that's often overlooked on mobile. We just release it once and then we keep it there. It doesn't really work on mobile, but you need to constantly release new updates, and Felgo Cloud Builds really helps you to do that. And the last tip I'd like to give is to really optimize your App Store entry and analyze what users are actually doing with your product so you can improve it. But this is a 30-minute session its own, so we have decided to host another free webinar about it. And you can sign up for that for free and get more info on all the examples that I've shown in this talk. Get a lot of these demos and videos that I've shown with full source code online at felgo.com/qt web address, and also sign up for the webinar then there. All right, so cool, thanks. I'm now looking really forward to your questions, and yeah, I'm going to check these now.
Great, thank you for the informative session, Christian. Before we, as we're getting close to the end of the session, if I can just give a quick note that you can find the link to send us the feedback or join the next live session via the page www.qt.io/thank-you survey. You can also, yes, this one, thank you. So you can also join the next session through this page and also access the Qt Professional Services live chat through this page as well. So you can revert back over to the live event page. Now let's dedicate some time for a few minutes of Q&A.
Cool. So, question, which Qt versions does Felgo support? So we basically support any Qt version that's out there, so we can customize and build Felgo with any Qt version that's available. Also, we can build Felgo for any target architecture and any target hardware that you're having. By default, always the latest long-time supported versions are supported that you get out of the box. But if you have like any other Qt versions that you need it for, just let us know and we can build that for you. Another question was, Felgo only supports mobile? No, and running on all the platforms that Qt supports actually, so also desktop, embedded, and web via WebAssembly. Can I use hot reload and cloud builds also without the Felgo APIs? Yes. So as I mentioned, this works out of the box with any Qt and QML projects are available, both cloud builds and hot reloading. So these are really separate tools to all the APIs that we're offering, and they're working with a default Qt version as well. And as I mentioned, if you have any custom C++ code, you can just build your own code reloading version that then works makes the QML code reloading know that the actual state in C++. Right, so do I need to change my application when I want to use Felgo? No. So there is, you don't need to change any of your existing QML APIs. You can just use, for example, some of the plugins, just use push notifications and let the rest of the Qt application remain untouched. So you don't need to change the whole structure of your application to use it. Right. There is a question regarding licenses. I figured I'd get that, so I prepared a quick slide about that. So there's 3 different licenses available: the free, the indie or startup license, and the enterprise license. Code reloading and cloud build and all, like 95% of all of the APIs are supported with the free license as well. So you get full access to hot reload and cloud builds, plus to most of the APIs. The only APIs that are not available in the free version are some of the plugins like push notifications and the augmented reality plugin. And there is also a publish powered by Felgo splash screen in the beginning of the application, which is then gone when you upgrade to one of the other license tiers. Also for targeting embedded platforms, that's the key difference between indie and enterprise. Then you need an enterprise license for targeting embedded. And key difference is also regarding the support that's included as part of the license. And also regarding source code. So all of the demos and applications are open source available, also with the free license already. If you need source code for the actual Felgo framework itself to build it on your own, with your own build machines and for your own setup, there is a source code license available also with the enterprise license. And yeah, and then there is a revenue limit regarding which license fits best to which kind of company. Very similar to what the Qt company did actually with the Qt for small business licenses. And we see mostly that that customers that ordering one of these licenses have one of these 2 Qt licenses already, which is for the indie license, the Qt for small business license, which is quite new, and for the enterprise license, the Qt for application development license or the device creation license are the most popular. All right. What else do we have there? Is it necessary to use Felgo while implementing iOS and Android apps? No, you can, of course, simply develop applications with Qt standalone as well. Felgo is an addition to the Qt framework, which helps you to build a lot faster for mobile and to solve all the the differences between iOS and Android and a lot more. So in summary, when it gets to the point of what the additional extensions that the main ones that Felgo adds is, of course, the sheer number of the 200 additional APIs, which depends on which of your use cases and requirements are, which ones the most useful are. But basically, you can get a better user experience by using the Felgo APIs and make better Qt applications for mobile. And then, of course, the Felgo Live and Hot Reload plus the cloud build solution that you get on top. All right, then another question by email is, you said you recommend to use QML as much as possible. When possible, is there a difference in performance in a simple HTTP request or a WebSocket client used by QML and C++? No, there's no real difference in these things, and especially for topics that are like very short in terms of where you don't have an ongoing process, but you just fire a simple HTTP request or WebSocket request. This is perfectly done to be in QML, because the actual implementation of the WebSocket themselves, this is in C++ anyway. And also the Felgo SDK and all the APIs that we are providing, these are in C++, and implemented in C++ because the framework shouldn't slow you down. But for actual application logic, this is the perfect fit to do that in QML. And you can also have a look at the demos that we are providing. There's more than 50 demos available with the Felgo SDK, where you can see that even games, for example, have been fully developed with QML, and games have a very hard real-time environment because you can feel it instantly if the 60 frames per second are not reached any longer. And all of the application logic in these games is done with QML as well. And that's possible because all the underlying technology is done with C++, and that is really fast. But for doing the actual application logic or game logic, that's very perfect to do in QML. All right. Yeah, then another question is, can I still use Qt Widget UI for Android application, and what are the limitations? You could. You could compile your application on a widget basis. I highly do not recommend it because widgets were made for desktop, and you can see that when you are deploying it on a mobile. So the touch areas do not really match, and the interface is just a lot different to what it has been when widgets were designed. So I'd not recommend using widgets for Android, although theoretically, and also not for iOS, although theoretically you could build it. So any good Felgo training online anywhere? Yeah, we do have a free Udemy course available when you sign up on the Felgo website. Plus there's also Felgo trainings available on our website, both one-on-one and also in groups. We do these remote as well. How do you manage Apple certificates with Cloud Build? Yeah, you can upload your certificates in the settings there. And so basically anything that's required for signing or certificate-wise, you can add to the Cloud Build server, and the applications are then signed and uploaded automatically. All right. So I think we covered it all.
Okay.
So if there's any more questions, just post them. Otherwise, it was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Christian, for joining us today, and everyone online. If you have any additional questions, we can take them in the Q&As and also send them over to Christian. But again, the next session has already started, and you can access the live sessions through that link that we just mentioned earlier, the thank you survey page. So
yeah, so if you like the session, make sure to rate all the sessions that you attended. This is helping us in the Qt company a lot to improve the whole process and to make the conference better every year.
Yes, thank you very much, Christian. Okay, well, without further ado, we'll let you go, and we'll see you online then. Till next time, keep well, everyone.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.